On June 25th, 2009, the world stood still. When news first broke that Michael Jackson, the undisputed king of pop, a man whose music defined generations, had died at the age of just 50, the global collective shock was unprecedented. The sheer volume of people racing online to verify the story collapsed major websites. Google search servers crashed. News channels abandoned planned programming. Millions of fans worldwide gathered in streets, squares, and living rooms, united in complete disbelief. How could a performer who was actively preparing for a historic 50-show comeback tour suddenly vanish overnight? To the outside world, Michael Jackson was on the verge of reclaiming his throne. But behind the heavy curtains of his rented mansion in Holmby Hills, California, a far more fragile and tragic reality was playing out. Through extensive court testimony, phone records, medical affidavits, and official transcripts, we now have a harrowing minute-by-minute picture of what really transpired. This is the exact sequence of events during the final 24 hours of Michael Jackson. To understand his final hours, you have to understand the immense pressure he was living under in June 2009. Michael was preparing for This Is It, a grueling residency at London's O2 Arena. Originally planned as a 10-show engagement, overwhelming demand pushed the schedule to an astounding 50 nights. At 50 years old, Michael was facing intense media scrutiny, overwhelming financial debt, and the terrifying expectation to match the physical brilliance of his youth. He was plagued by intense chronic pain and severe, paralyzing insomnia, a condition that had tormented him for decades. Desperate for rest during rehearsals, Michael had hired a private physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, paying him a massive monthly salary to oversee his health and ensure he got enough sleep to survive the upcoming schedule. It is Wednesday evening, June 24th, roughly 20 hours before his death. Michael arrives at the Staples Center in downtown Los Angeles for a crucial full-dress rehearsal. For weeks, rumors had circulated among the crew that Michael seemed frail, thin, and easily exhausted. But on this night, something shifted. Witnesses, dancers, and crew members later testified that Michael seemed focused, sharp, and full of energy. He took the stage and guided his team through high-energy performances of his legendary catalog, including Thriller, Smooth Criminal, and Dangerous. The final song he ever performed on a stage was Earth Song. He sang live, danced alongside his crew, and stayed late into the night, perfecting stage cues with his show director, Kenny Ortega. Those present recalled a man who looked relieved, happy, and optimistic about the future. At 12:30 a.m. on the morning of June 25th, Michael steps off the stage at the Staples Center. He hugs his dancers, exchanges warm goodnights with his staff, and steps into his waiting vehicle. He leaves the arena with a smile on his face. He has less than 14 hours left to live. At approximately 1 a.m., Michael arrives home at his rented estate on Carrollwood Drive. A small group of dedicated fans is waiting outside in the quiet neighborhood. He pauses briefly to wave and greet them before his vehicle pulls into the gated driveway. Inside the home, the layout is strictly divided. The second-floor master suite is a completely private sanctuary. No one is permitted upstairs without explicit permission, save for his children and Dr. Conrad Murray. And it is behind these closed doors that the night quickly turns into a desperate struggle. Michael was mentally exhausted from the high-energy rehearsal, but his body's nervous system was firing at full tilt. He desperately needed sleep, but his mind simply would not turn off. Over the next 9 hours, a quiet medical disaster began to unfold inside the bedroom. According to police records and Dr. Murray's own statements, A dangerous regimen of sedatives was administered in a desperate attempt to knock Michael unconscious. At 1:30 a.m., Dr. Murray gives Michael a 10-milligram Valium pill. An hour passes, but Michael remains wide awake, tossing and turning. At 2 a.m., Murray attempts a stronger approach, injecting 2 milligrams of lorazepam, a heavy anti-anxiety sedative, directly into Michael's intravenous drip line. Still, Michael cannot sleep. At 3 a.m., with Michael growing increasingly agitated, Murray administers 2 milligrams of midazolam, another potent sedative. Michael remains awake. At 5 a.m., another 2 milligrams of lorazepam are added to the mix. At 7:30 a.m., yet another dose of midazolam is injected. The sun is rising over Los Angeles, birds are singing outside, and Michael Jackson has not slept for a single second. Exhausted, terrified of failing his upcoming shows, and suffering from severe sleep deprivation, Michael begins begging his doctor for what he routinely referred to as his milk, his personal nickname for Propofol. Propofol is a powerful intravenous general anesthetic, visually resembling a milky white liquid. It is intended strictly for operating rooms to induce general anesthesia during surgery. It is never meant to be used as a routine sleep aid, nor is it meant to be administered in a private bedroom without continuous medical monitoring equipment, oxygen delivery systems, and advanced resuscitation gear. By 10:40 a.m., after hours of relentless pleading from his patient, Dr. Murray gives in. He injects 25 milligrams of propofol, diluted with lidocaine, into Michael's IV line. The drug acts almost instantaneously. Michael's brain activity slows, his eyes close, and he finally falls silent. Dr. Murray later claimed to police that he monitored Michael at the bedside for 10 minutes before stepping out of the room to use the restroom. However, phone records presented at trial revealed a starkly different story. Over the following hour, Murray was engaged in multiple personal cell phone calls, handling personal business and messaging acquaintances. When Murray finally returned to the master bedroom shortly after 11 a.m., he approached the bed and found a horrific scene. Michael Jackson was not breathing. His pulse was faint and fading fast. What happened over the next hour became the central focus of a criminal trial. Rather than immediately picking up a phone to dial emergency services, Dr. Murray panicked. He began performing manual CPR on Michael, but he did so on top of a soft mattress, a crucial error, as CPR requires a hard, flat surface to effectively compress the heart. At 12:12 p.m., over 40 minutes after realizing something was drastically wrong, Murray calls Michael's personal assistant, leaving a frantic voicemail asking him to come upstairs right away, because Michael had suffered a bad reaction. Shortly after, security guard Alberto Alvarez enters the room. But instead of ordering Alvarez to call 911 immediately, Dr. Murray instructs him to help clear the room, directing him to collect drug vials, sedatives, and IV bags off the floor and place them into tote bags. Only after the medical items are packed away does Alvarez finally dial 911 at 12:21 p.m., nearly an hour after Michael was first found unresponsive. Paramedics from the Los Angeles Fire Department arrive at the residence just 3 minutes later at 12:24 p.m. When they reach the second-floor bedroom, they find Michael's body cold, his eyes fixed, and his heart completely flatlined. Standard medical protocol advised declaring him deceased at the scene, but Dr. Murray insists that resuscitation efforts continue. At 1:14 p.m., an ambulance rushes Michael's body to Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center. For more than an hour, emergency room physicians and trauma specialists work frantically, employing every possible procedure to restore a heartbeat. At 2:26 p.m. on June 25, 2009, doctors officially cease all resuscitation efforts. Michael Jackson is pronounced dead. The Los Angeles County coroner subsequently ruled the death a homicide, citing acute propofol intoxication compounded by the heavy combination of benzodiazepines in his system. In November 2011, Dr. Conrad Murray was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter for criminal negligence. The tragic irony of Michael Jackson's final day lies in the stark contrast between his public life and his private reality. Just hours before his death, he was dancing on a stage in front of his team, showing flashes of the iconic genius that captivated billions. Yet behind closed doors, away from the stadium lights and roaring crowds, lay a profoundly isolated man fighting a quiet, desperate battle against exhaustion. He was a global phenomenon who simply wanted to sleep, caught in a tragic chain of events that ended the life of the greatest performer the world had ever seen.